Hey guys, welcome back. Look, every now and then I'll actually go through my comment section and answer questions asked by particular subscribers, fans, anybody who makes a comment really. So I encourage you to actually ask me questions. Today I'm going to ask a question by Carla May. She asks, can you also make an explanation on rent to own properties here in Dubai? Is it worth it? Before we get into it, show reel first. All right, guys, welcome back. Check this out. She's asked a very good question because sometimes top developers, and we've got this in the market in Dubai, and mid-tier developers come out with rent-to-own options that might be enticing for a few people. Now, what I would like to do is shed a little bit more light so that if you're going for this option, or if you haven't thought about this option before, perhaps you could consider it, okay? I'm going to share the pros and a few of the cons. One thing that I do want to explain before I get into the rent to own option, I want to explain something that I talk about in a lot of my videos. Look, advice is always customized, okay? And as we get to the end of this video, you're going to understand why rent to own option on its own might not be good for you, might not be bad for you. It actually truly depends on your situation, personal, financial, what's your long-term goal. For this to absolutely make sense, to be a beneficial property, both in financial, usability, utility services, utility purpose, and the long term, okay? This is something that's very, very critical. Now I'm gonna give you a little bit of some history, okay? So let's go back to 2008, when Dubai initially introduced rent to own, okay? 2008 October cityscape is when, you know, the global financial crisis really kind of had an effect on the Dubai market, okay? And the Dubai market 2008 October, they felt like, oh my God, the quietness in the market is just temporary, it's going to bounce back. But then, you know, as the world went into a global recession, so did Dubai face its own challenges. And by mid 2009, the Dubai market understood that, look, this market isn't going back up in terms of demand or prices anytime soon. And I remember Emar and some of the other top developers at that time, by 2009, mid 2009, early 2009, came out with rent to own options. So essentially speaking, this started in 2008, 2009. Now, what was the success rate like at that time? It wasn't amazing. The take-up was not that great, okay? I'll be frank with you. Emar ran that program for a little while, and then they stopped it. Why? Because by 2009, 2010, let's not say 2010, 2010 and 11, the market started seeing some activity. You know, people who were looking for distressed deals were coming into the market. Now, why it was introduced in the earlier part of, or latter part of 2009, sorry, it was because of the 2008 recession, and it was introduced in 2009. However, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on what in Dubai rent to own kind of looks like, okay? When a developer comes in with a rent to own option, this is essentially what they do, okay? They ask you to get into a 3-year contract. It could be 5 years or it could be 3. Generally, it's 3, okay? And at the end of the last year, or at the end of the 4th year or 3rd year, whatever the last year, they give you a decision to make. Either it's you want to purchase that property or you don't want to purchase that property. And what the developer essentially does is it takes that money that you've already prepaid and puts it in or towards the property that you would like to purchase, essentially speaking, okay? So for 3 years or 4 years, you're essentially a tenant of the developer, and you decide the price that you're going to buy it at, and at the end of 3 year or the last year, you're going to make that decision and say, yes, I want to purchase this property. And the developer in most cases is going to put your first 3 years rent towards the property purchase. Now, two things happen in this instance, okay? Number one, the rent is considerably higher for the first year, second year, and third year, okay? Now, basically, look at it from the developer's perspective, okay? They're going to block a property for you for 3 years that you might end up not buying. Therefore, they feel that the higher rent, which might be 20-25% higher than what the market could get them at the moment, is justified and compensates them for blocking the property. Now, even after 3 years, you might not actually make the purchase, okay? Here's what's happening, okay? So please pay attention. I hope, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, I hope I'm able to explain this point clearly to the amateurs or some people who are looking to start out investment. So you will pay a higher price in rent in the beginning. Is that clear? For the first 1, 2, 3 years, because the developer is essentially blocking that property for you. If you went and picked up a unit, similar apartment or villa or townhouse from the market, if the developer is asking you for 150,000 or 200,000, maybe the market might be priced at 100,000 or 110,000. So now you understood one point. You're going to be paying higher rent for the first 1, 2, 3 years. Number two, generally, when rent-to-own options in the Dubai market have been introduced, guess where prices are going? I hope you can see this. Prices are on their way downward. They've got a downward trend, okay? So now, essentially speaking, if you as a buyer are looking to get into this kind of an agreement, what the developer is going to do is the developer is going to use today's current market price, perhaps a little bit even more, a little bit expensive, and because they're going to wait 3 years to get this deal done, right? So maybe you won't even buy at the end of the 3 years. So if you commit to that, you're committing to a price that might be slightly higher than the market. More than that, you're also committing to buying the property at a certain, you're not committing to say yes to buying the property, but there's an option to buy the property, but the price is higher in a market where prices are going down. So for most people, what's going to happen is they're going to think like, hey, if the market prices are going down, generally real estate is like this. If the market trend is downward, what's going to happen is people are psychologically going to assume that after 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, market prices might be further down 25%. So why should I be stuck in a contract, even if it's just an option to buy, where the price is what the price was 3 years ago and today the price is lower? I hope I'm able to explain this. Devon, am I able to explain this well? Okay, all right, I've got a thumbs up from my camera person. If you don't understand this, ask me in the comment section. I will make another video. So generally prices are going down, rent is, you pay higher. As I said, this is a very unique situation, only advisable to you in your personal situation. I've seen one person, one of my close friends, also an investor, who actually went into a property like this. Why did he do this? Okay, he wanted a villa that was about 5 million. This is back in 5-6 years ago. Okay, and he had 5 million dirhams stuck somewhere else in other investments, and he didn't want to get them out immediately. Okay, so he didn't want to, put 5 million towards his investment. But he did have 300,000. And here was a developer that was offering this villa for 5 million, but said he'll let them rent for 3 years, 300, I think there was an increasing rent or something. So essentially speaking, after about 900K, which is almost $1 million, at this stage in 3 years, he needs to pay the balance 4 million. If he wants to purchase. And for my friend, his money deployed somewhere else was absolutely okay. Like for instance, I don't know, if you've got money in a blockchain company and you've got prices going up in that company, or you're shareholder in Tesla or whatever, you don't want to take that out and put it in a property, then this just absolutely made sense. Did he buy the perfect property that made sense to him? I don't think so. I think if he had the 5 million, he wouldn't have bought that property. I wouldn't have advised him. But because the developer was offering this rent to own option, he kind of bought it. Now, comes back to the point, the advice has to be very customized. Why? Check this out, right? Here's something that you need to really understand. The property, okay, this is a big point. And if I'm able to explain this, the property that's on rent to own is sometimes not on the best, it's not the best properties that are being offered for rent to own. Sometimes, not all the time. Depends where the market is. If you're getting a good deal, if 5 million deployed in another investment is going to make you 10 million, who cares, right? You rent this property, maybe about 3-4 years later, price has already gone up. Hey, what's the big deal? You've made money there, you've made money over here. Maybe the property is not at 5 million anymore. Maybe the property is at 7 million after 3 years. Boom. You made money with the money that was deployed elsewhere. You made money on the villa that you bought. Very simple. Now, generally speaking, okay, for instance, Emaar has certain properties. I'm not going to say they're good or bad, right? The latest list that I'd seen were properties on the podium level, on the second floor. So what? Some people want to live on the lower floor, and that's what they like, right? So because, they want to get some exercise, or God forbid, if somebody's facing an emergency and needs to run down, that cannot use the elevator, so on and so forth. But you got to really check what property is available. As I said, you don't go and buy from the market the cheapest property. You go and purchase value, and value needs to be defined by who? You. You're the person who defines value. I hope I'm able to make that. Now I'm going to tell you one horror story, but before I go to the horror story, I'm just going to quickly recount. Look, advice should be customized. Rent to own property might be good for you, might not be good for you. Dubai introduced it back in 2009. By 2010-11, it was gone away from the market. We've got some options again available today. They're generally on a 3-year or 5-year or a 4-year payment plan. The rents are generally higher because the developer blocking that property for you, and you're not committing to purchase. You only have an option to purchase without any generally penalties. The developer is going to ask and seek higher rent, and generally rent to own options are introduced in a market where prices are going downward. And in that case, if the property is valued at 5 million, you probably thinking, oh my God, the property is going to be at 4 million after 3 years. Why should I commit to buying it at 5 million? As I said, my friend's example is very clear. He had money, he couldn't deploy all of it in a property. The rent to own option just made sense because he could, bring the 4 million to the developer over a period of time easier. So that made a lot of sense. Now I'll share one horror story with you. Back in 2008-9, as I told you, developers did that. Emaar wasn't the only developer. Other mid-tier developers did that as well. By 2012, 2013, guess what? Prices had gone up. So I succinctly remember there was this young guy from Brazil. I remember he was from Brazil because I think Brazil was having the Olympics in 2013 or 14, and he was living in Dubai. He was working from Dubai, and he bought a townhouse from one of the lower tier developers with the option to purchase it. I think the option to purchase was at 1.3 million, and market price at that time was 1.7 million. Now, when he got into the contract, he had no, I think, reasons to believe he would end up buying. But at this stage, when the market had gone up by 2012-13, and he could easily just sell it for 1.7 million, guess what? Made a lot of sense to just pay the developer the 1.3 minus the rent you've already paid and purchase it and make 400,000. But guess what? Here's the thing. The developer was not paying ball with them. They weren't being very nice to actually implement the agreement. So just to let you know, the rent-to-own agreements, if they're not registered in the land department, with the top tier developers, you're okay. I'm not giving you legal advice. With the top tier developers, they kind of like stay on the right side of the law. You're generally all right. With the lower tier developers, you're gonna have to count your fingers before you walk away from the meeting, okay? So just be a little bit careful. I hope that made sense. And Carla May, thank you for that question. It was good. Gave me the opportunity to connect with my subscribers and answer that in detail. All right. If anything's unclear, hit me back up. I'm happy to explain again. All right. Ciao for now.
Okay guys, so thanks for watching. My name again is Fahd Dawood. I've been doing this for 14 plus years.
I started in 2006 in Toronto, Canada, and since 2007 I've been doing this in Dubai. I generally talk about real estate, your life, my life, and our path to allowing financial bliss coming to us. If you want to work with me, such as buy a property in Dubai, or you need general advice, you can hit me up on in the contact form below. If you've liked this video, I'd appreciate if you subscribe, press the bell icon, and hit the like button and share it with other friends. Ciao for now.